Alright, so we got the engine running. That's definitely a good thing. No weird noises. Granted, it was only running for maybe a few seconds before I turned it off. You know, it didn't stall or anything, but I just didn't want to give it a chance to warm up because I want to actually get it to warm up while I'm driving it. Yeah. So, got the car started. That's awesome. No weird noises. Nothing strange happened. No leaks or anything. So I think now I'm ready to go ahead, get the intercooler back on, get the wheels back on, bleed the radiator, and then actually take it for a test drive. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to that. You guys were with me. Listening and spazzing out to myself. This clutch is going to take some getting used to. Back from our first initial test drive. Everything seems fine. So I think what I'm going to do is button it up the rest of the way and just start driving it. Alright, so I put about 20 miles on the car. So I'm going to go ahead, jack her up, and drain the oil. You know, you typically want to do this because you know, you don't want to put a ton of miles in the car, drain the oil, and then find out that there's metal shavings in it. So you kind of want to just, you know, get it warmed up, put it under some load, and you know, get it to heat cycle a little bit, and then you know, drain it. Make sure there's nothing catastrophically wrong or something going wrong. So yeah, this should be exciting. Hopefully what I get out of it is just clean oil with no metal shavings in it. Alright, so update. Last night, pulled the oil, drained the oil, and I got this stuff. It's brand new oil, looks black, so obviously some area of concern there. Take my 120 watt bulb, shine it in there, and I've got metal. It's very fine particulate. You know, basically looks like the last time. So, I don't know. I don't know if this is normal because this is just the first 20 miles of the engine. So, I'd imagine the rings have to wear in and stuff like that, but this looks pretty much exactly like it looked the last time when it ate all the bearings. This time around, new crank, tighter clearances. But yeah, I didn't notice anything in the filter. I mean, yeah, maybe some small little bits and stuff there, but you'd expect to see some metal on a brand new engine, but I don't know how much is normal. And that very fine metal slurry that I have there is very concerning. It's not doing that. Alright, so back from work, 8 hours later. While I was at work, I did some research on metal particulate in the oil because I didn't have anything else to do. I mean, of course I worked, but you know, yeah. So anyways, did some research, metal particulates in the oil, and there seems to be like two camps. The first one is that there shouldn't be anything in the oil. It should be perfectly clean. If the engine was perfectly clean when it went together, there shouldn't be anything that comes out of it. There's the other camp that says that, you know, I built tons of engines, and every engine I've ever built has had some form of metal particulate, you know, usually not like anything, not flakes or chunks, but just like a shimmer, you know, a glittery effect to the oil. You know, a very, very fine slurry of metal particles in the oil. And they say that's perfectly normal. I know it's very common in motorcycles, but motorcycles, you know, it's to be expected because the clutch is inside the same oil that the engine uses, so it's going to be dirty on the brake end. But anyways, back on subject, the brain fart. So yeah, the metal particulate in the oil. You know, the other camp says, you know, you're going to have things like piston rings that are seating. You're going to have, you know, things like cams and stuff that may be becoming reacquainted with new surfaces. Granted, these are the cams that were in the engine before, but there are fairly new tappets, so maybe they're, you know, seating in. You've got brass bushings in the pistons and rods, or you've got brass bushings in the rods. So in a case like that, where you have the brass, you know, bushings, there may be a honeymoon phase where the piston pins and the rod bushings are becoming acquainted with each other, and they were fairly tight to press in. Some were kind of loose, some were fairly tight. It was kind of weird, but so it could be particulates from that. So there are reasons for there to be particulates in the oil. The other thing is that I may not have cleaned the engine as well as I could have. If you look at the diagram for the oil passages in the Mazda BP, you'll see that there's a passage that goes from the oil pump to the main bearings to the head, and then there's a hidden passage that's reminiscent from the earlier Mazda BPs, and I think even some of the later BPs probably have it. But anyway, some Mazda BPs have a oil tap on the front of the engine to feed the turbo from the GTX engines and stuff like that. So that passage is still cast into the block. So if you're trying to clean the engine out and you're just blowing stuff through the oil galleys, if you're just using like an air compressor and lacquer thinner like I did, it's possible for stuff to get blown back into that back galley, and it doesn't have an exit on my engine. There's no tap to let loose to blow stuff out of there. So it's very possible that in the process of trying to clean it, I could have just blown more crud back into that passage that, you know, is blocked off. So if that's the case, once the engine heats up and new oil gets in there, it could wash some of that stuff out and into the engine, hopefully not damaging the bearings, but I don't know. So rather than pull the oil pan and pull everything back apart, I'm just going to put a new filter on and put new oil in it, and I'm just going to continue to drive it. And I'm not going to wait 1,000 miles like I was originally going to do, or 500 miles. I'll probably check it again and maybe another 20 miles and see if the oil is clearing up or if it's getting worse. Yeah, so, you know, depending on, you know, if I check it and it's getting better or worse, you know, if it's getting worse, you know, I'll make the decision as to whether or not I'm going to, you know, as to whether or not I'm going to pull the engine apart and rebuild it, or burn the fucking car to the ground. So yeah, that's pretty much just the plan. I'm just going to go ahead, change the oil, and hope for the best. I am going to screen the oil before I dump it to see if there's any major flakes in it or anything like that, any chunks. If there's any chunks, that may change my current decision, but we'll see. Alright, so I got the last of it out of there. I don't know if you can really see that on camera, but there are some little sparkly bits that are left in there. They're pretty small, but definitely kind of concerning for obvious reasons. I don't know if you can see that, probably not. You can kind of see what I'm doing is I'm moving a magnet behind the pan, so you can kind of see the little waves it's creating. It's pretty cool. I mean, it would be really cool if it wasn't for the fact that, you know, it's terrifying. You know, as a matter of fact, I think it can actually feel like where it's really heavy. I feel like I've kind of scooped all the metal into kind of concentrating it, so it is ferrous, whatever it is. The bigger bits don't seem to be affected by it, so the bigger bits are kind of concerning, but the fine powdery residue is ferrous, so it could just be cylinder walls or piston rings. It's actually kind of cool. You can actually see the magnet move the material around. But yeah, the bigger chunks are concerning. Could be aluminum, which would suck, and that would mean that's piston. Or it could be one of the layers of bearing material. Don't know. Anyways, I'll go ahead, refill it with oil, and drive it for another. I'll probably check it and like drain a little bit of it and look at it and see what it looks like. That's kind of entails looking at it. At like 20 miles, and then if it looks fine, you know, I'll keep driving it and check it again, and so on and so forth. So I guess I'll just get back to you on it. Probably not going to do it today. Probably not tomorrow. Probably won't get around to driving it until this weekend. So, and for you guys, it may be one video. It may be a quick transition. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. This is I'm a bit befuddled. Kind of forgot to mention on the rag. I really don't see anything. I don't see any major chunks or anything that's anything to worry about. It really didn't catch anything, which is surprising. So no big chunks floating in it. Everything's kind of at the bottom of the pan. So I don't know.